So the British Board of Film Classification, the BBFC, publishing new guidelines following a public consultation. As we know at the cinema, yes, there are occasions when you'll get turned away for being too young. Remember those days very well. It doesn't happen anymore. But it's all online now. This is how the youth are consuming film and TV. So how on earth do you monitor or control that? Matt Porter is the Gadget man, back on the show with us. Hi, Matt.
Hi there, how are you?
Very well, my friend. Well, of course, without getting into the realms of this should be banned or that should be banned, I can't see that ever happening. So can we trust technology to protect our young children's eyes, Matt?
I think we can to a certain extent. Obviously, things sometimes drop through. In the case of YouTube, there is a YouTube Kids app which children can use on their tablets, which cuts out, if not all, of the adult content or content that's not considered suitable for younger people. So that's one way. That's one way our kids like to look at videos on YouTube. They've got these silly little ones that they like to watch all the time.
Yeah.
And if we use YouTube Kids, it means it filters out all the stuff we don't really want them to see. But sometimes stuff does drop through.
And they're going to be quite capable at some point of just going on to the ordinary YouTube, aren't they?
Yeah, on their tablets, we sort of stop them using a browser, so they have kind of kid-friendly tablets, which kind of, again, filter out stuff that you don't really want them to go and have a look at. But give them another few years, very probably they'll be able to circumvent it. But at the moment, I'm kind of reasonably confident that they're protected in some ways.
All the companies have sort of tried. There are programs, I get infuriated by it, by certain programs on Sky, where you have to put a PIN code in. I can't switch it off. And of course, what happens, Dad, can we watch so-and-so? Yeah, what's your PIN code? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So that circumnavigates that, and that's
exactly,
probably
and
my fault.
Then you're faced with having to change the PIN code.
Exactly.
But this is or they can watch it whatever they want.
This is the thing. You mentioned YouTube there. They have recently banned the uploading of dangerous prank videos.
Yeah,
so they're being quite proactive.
Yeah. They have been quite proactive, and there's this situation where it would seem as though people are quite easily influenced to do dangerous things. So if we take the case of Birdcage, I can't think of the name of it. The film on Netflix where they're blindfolded for the most of the film.
Yeah, I know which one you mean. The Bird Box.
Yeah, and people have been going, making videos of them walking around with blindfolds on, and in one case, a lady was driving a car blindfolded and had an accident. I mean, I guess you can't stop people being stupid.
That is the other point, isn't it? You can't legislate for stupidity.
No. And also, I think that there's been the classification you were talking about, that's been altered now, and I think that's trying to filter its way onto the likes of things like Netflix so that their classification as well adheres to those rules. I have to be honest, I don't know when the original Jaws film was out, I think in 1975.
75, yeah.
Yeah, well, that would have been probably in the UK in 76. I went to see that as part of my friend's birthday party. And I would have been 7.
We did. Even back then, prior to the internet, I saw Exorcist long before I was 18. You just managed to, didn't you? So
you did,
and it was the cool thing to do, to sneak into an X-rated movie. I don't know how you're really going to stop it.
No, I think that, I think we've had this conversation before where it comes down to responsibility has to lie with parents to the most extent that, you should be aware of what your children are doing as best you can if they have internet-enabled devices. And if you don't know what they're doing, then you perhaps should take some steps to find out what they're doing. So I think it's just being involved in the upbringing of children, really, to the extent rather than hand them an iPad because it keeps them quiet, actually go and see what they might be doing on that iPad.
I mean, there's other elements as well. Obviously, the influence that movies bring to bear. But one of the other points I think I would raise is we don't want our children to be terrified. Now, should there be some sort of parental control over news?
Well, that's a very good point. I remember when some of the satellite news providers started a few years back, and I remember a friend of mine saying to me, it's 20 years ago, saying to me, you know, they're quite graphic. The reporting of their news is quite graphic in comparison to terrestrial news that we get. And I think that's a very good point, that some things are extremely disturbing. I mean, there have been, you know, disasters in the past that have been reported, and the news companies have been, or have had their wrists slapped about it. I think particularly 9/11. I remember that specifically, where some of the news services just had a repeating image of the plane crashing into the building over and over and over again in the background, and it was gratuitous in some respects rather than trying to report the news. So yeah, I think there is some.
It's a really difficult balance, Matt. 13 years ago, this very radio station, while you were driving your children to school, was reporting the fact that 6 young ladies had been killed in the town where they live. I mean, that's got to be terrifying.
Yeah, very, very frightening, isn't it, for everybody, and unnerving at the very least, thinking that that's going on almost under our noses. Yeah, so there has to be some. I think in that case there were teaching staff were kind of gathering the children in special assemblies to try and explain to them what was going on and how they should be careful but shouldn't be frightened and all of these kind of things. So yeah, it's difficult.
Back to technology, Matt. If someone has, you know, or is about to buy a tablet or a device in which, you know, they are capable of receiving material that's not for the younger eye, what is it they can do, Matt? What can they do with it?
You know, there are tablets, there are manufacturers. I always try and hesitate from promoting a particular brand, but there are brands out there that do specific tablets that are aimed at kids. And we have one for our little boy, you know, because he likes to look, and he because he's disabled, he kind of doesn't have the same level of common sense about what he might look at. So in his respect, we can dial down the age of that tablet, which means it will get age specific content on there and protect him from accessing things he shouldn't. So I think that's a very good point. Rather than going out and buying a off-the-shelf tablet, if you want a child to have one, think about how you can use a specifically targeted device for children, and they are available, and they're very cost effective as well. You know, they're not expensive, which is good, and they're good value for money.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we always allude to this, Matt, it comes down to parental responsibility. But you've got to be really on it, haven't you, with this? The kids are clever. Let's not deny that. They know what they're doing around these tablets, most of them.
Yeah. Our entire houses are nowadays are kind of networked, especially with things like Google Home and Amazon Alexa and things like that. Those devices, you know, what's to stop a child asking something of Alexa and having something come back which isn't kind of age specific again? So yeah, we embrace this technology because we want to move forward and become or live in the era of Star Trek, but there's also dangers associated with it, and we need to just keep on top of it.
Matt, have you yourself been influenced at all by a movie?
I have particular favourite movies. I think sad, isn't it? I was really into the Matrix movies when they came out, especially
I thought as much.
And I remember going out and buying a pair of sunglasses which were the same that Neo wore in the movies, and thinking how cool I was. So yeah.
I may have had a leather jacket with T-birds on the back. I may have done at some point.
I wanted a Big Lebowski cardigan that the dude wore. Yeah, that was another one. Yeah,
exactly. Matt Porter, the Gadget Man. Matt, have a great day. We'll speak to you soon.
Thank you.